The hull plate came in like a dead animal. Rian had it on the sled, edges wrapped in ragged cloth so they would not cut the rope. The sled hissed over the sand and the old service rails, leaving a pale scrape behind it. His shoulders burned. The rope dug into his palms through the thin gloves. He leaned his weight forward and walked, one slow step after another, down the narrow cut toward the pit. The plate had been part of a troop transport once. You could still see the faded outline of some regiment crest on the outer curve. A snarling bird or flame. The paint was blistered and half sanded away. Bullet scars pocked the metal. Someone had shot at it from very close range a long time ago. Angle 5 degrees to your left, Kael said in his ear. The sled will clear the rock outcrop. Rian grunted and shifted. The sled bumped, then slid past the dark knob of stone. Wind blew thin dust across his boots. The sun was still low but already hot on his neck. How much does this thing weigh? He asked. 320 kilos, Kael said. You are pulling approximately 110, given the slope and friction. Your body mass is... Feels like more, Rian said. He did not have breath for much else. He reached the edge of the pit and braced his boots. The pit's shadow yawned below, a dark oval cut into the old maintenance yard. The skeleton of the ship arced across it now. Ribs of scavenged frame metal bolted to the central spine. It looked like the bones of some long, narrow animal caught halfway through a leap. Rian had built a crude crane over the last week. 2 upright beams from a cargo pallet, a crossbar, a pulley stolen from a derelict loader. The rope hung down into the pit, frayed but thick. He tied the sled rope to the crane line with numb fingers. Double knot. Triple. He checked it twice. Then he walked the sled back, took up the slack, and leaned his weight into the crank handle. The pulley creaked. The plate rose slowly. Sand slid off it in thin streams. The transport crest turned in the light. Steady, Kael said. You are drifting toward the south support. I see it. Rian's arm shook. The crank handle wanted to spin back and take his fingers off. He set his feet, teeth clenched, and inched the plate over the open pit. His shirt stuck to his back. Sweat ran into his eyes. He blinked it away and kept going. 15 centimeters more, Kael said. Stop. Lock it. Rian hooked the safety pin into the side of the crank. The load settled, swaying a little. The rope creaked. He stepped to the edge and looked down. The frame waited below, the spine beam running nose to tail, the cross ribs arcing up. He had already laid 3 hull plates on the port side, bolted into place, edges overlapping like scales. Gaps still showed between them, lines of daylight. He would seal those later. This new plate would go on the starboard side, near the bow. Kael had modeled it in a ghost overlay on the cracked tablet screen that lay propped against a rock. The faint blue outline of the plate hovered over a wireframe of the ship. Bring it down, Kael said. Rian spat into the sand to clear his mouth, then pulled the pin and let the crank turn under his control. Slow! The plate descended, swinging a little. He guided it with one hand on the rope, one hand on the crank. It came level with the half-built hull. He stopped it there. Half meter toward you, Kael said. Then rotate clockwise. 19 degrees. Rian manhandled the plate, pushing against 300 kilos of metal hanging on a line. It moved grudgingly. The rope burned his palms through the gloves. The muscles in his back knotted. Close enough, Kael said. Lower 10 centimeters. The plate kissed the ribs with a dull clang. Dust puffed. Rian let out a slow breath. He climbed down the ladder into the pit, boots ringing on the rungs. Down here it was cooler. The air smelled of old oil and hot metal. Up close, the plate's scars were more obvious. He ran his hand over a long groove where something had gouged the metal. It had not gone all the way through. This will hold? He asked. Yes, Kael said. Once you bolt it to the ribs and seal the seams. The underlying alloy is sound. Rian did not know what kind of alloy it was. He only knew it was thick and heavy, and from a ship that had once flown. He wedged himself between the plate and the frame. The space was tight. His shoulders brushed metal on both sides. He had to twist his head to see the bolt holes he had drilled in the ribs yesterday. The alignment was off by a finger's width. Top edge is long, he said. By 12 millimeters at the aft corner, Kael said. You can shave it with the cutter, or adjust the rib bracket. Cutter, Rian said. He did not want to move the rib. The ribs were straight. He trusted them. He climbed back out, fetched the hand cutter from his tool crate, and slid back into the gap. He clamped the cutter's jaws over the plate edge and squeezed the trigger. The cutter spat blue light and a harsh buzzing sound. Bright sparks sprayed his bare forearms. He smelled burned metal and singed hair. He gritted his teeth and followed the line Kael had marked on the tablet. It took 3 passes. His hand shook by the end. The cut edge glowed dull red. Let it cool, Kael said. You should drink. Rian crawled out and sat with his back against the spine beam. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. He took the canteen from his belt and drank. The water was warm and tasted of the plastic, but it helped. How much more? He asked. For the hull? Kael said. Including this plate, 7 major sections. For the ship to reach orbit safely, a complete pressure hull, functioning life support, power, thrust, and control. You are at 42% of structural completion. 42, Rian repeated. The number felt like a stone. At your current rate of work, Kael said, you can reach minimum viable configuration in 12 days. That assumes 10 hours of labor per day and no major injuries. Rian looked up at the strip of sky. It was flat and pale and empty. No contrails. No ships. 12 days is too long, he said. Yes, Kael said. Based on recent surveillance patterns, we have 9 days before the next scheduled sweep drone passes close enough to detect anomalous heat signatures here. After that, the probability of discovery increases sharply. So we're late already, Rian said. We are not late, Kael said. We are constrained. There is a difference. Rian snorted. Feels the same. He waited until the plate cooled, then slid back in and checked the fit. This time the bolt holes lined up with the rib brackets. He took the first bolt, a thick thing with mismatched threads, and pushed it through. It stuck halfway. He hammered it with the heel of his hand until his palm ached. It went through with a dull pop. He spun the nut on the other side, fingers slipping on the greasy metal. By the time he had 4 bolts in, his hands were shaking again. His gloves had worn through at the fingers days ago. The skin there was raw and cracked. Old blisters had split. New ones had formed. Blood mixed with the black grease and dried in thin, dark lines. Your grip strength is dropping, Kael said. Take a break. No, Rian said. If I stop now, I won't start again. That is not accurate. It feels true. He kept going. Bolt after bolt. Nut after nut. 32 along the top edge. 26 along the bottom. By the 10th, his fingers were numb. By the 20th, he could not feel where the thread caught. He had to watch the nut spin with his eyes. Metal dust got into the cuts on his hands. The sting was sharp, then dull, then not there at all. Rian, Kael said, you are damaging your hands. You require them for later tasks. Rian leaned his forehead against the cool inside of the plate for a moment. His breath echoed in the narrow space. I know, he said. Just let me finish this side. Silence, then. Very well. I will monitor your heart rate. If it exceeds safe limits, I will insist. You can insist all you want, Rian muttered. He reached for the next bolt. By the time he tightened the last nut on the bottom edge, his arms felt like someone else's. He tried to flex his fingers and felt only a weak tingling. He backed out of the gap slowly, careful not to bang his head. He stood in the pit and looked at the hull. The new plate changed the shape of the bow. It was less open now, more like a real ship. The curve of the starboard side mirrored the port, almost. The gaps between plates were smaller. It still looked like a patchwork. Different metals, different colors. Smooth transport plating next to rough cargo hull. But they all followed the same curve now. The same line Kael had drawn on the tablet. It's ugly, Rian said. There was a strange satisfaction in the word. It is functional, Kael said. Beauty is a secondary goal. Rian's mouth twitched. You say that because you don't have to look at it. I have to look at it constantly, Kael said. I am running simulations of its stress responses in the background. How is it? Within acceptable parameters, given material variance, Kael said. Once you weld the seams and apply sealant, the hull will withstand vacuum and moderate micrometeor impacts. Do not fly through a debris field. I'll try not to, Rian said. He climbed the ladder out of the pit. His legs shook on the way up. At the top, he sat down hard on the warm sand and let his feet dangle over the edge. The sun was higher now. Heat shimmered over the broken tarmac of the old yard. In the distance, the line of dunes blurred. A buzz of insects came from the dry scrub near the fence. Rian flexed his hands again. The skin across his knuckles had split in 3 places. Blood had dried in dark flakes. He picked at one without thinking and winced when the skin tore fresh. Stop that, Kael said. You are increasing the risk of infection. Got any medicine in your head? Rian asked. No, Kael said, but I can remind you where you stored the antiseptic. Second crate, lower left, under the coil of blue cable. Rian sighed, pushed himself up, and went to the crate. The antiseptic was where Kael said, a small metal tin with a cracked lid. He opened it and smelled the sharp, clean bite. He dabbed it on his hands with a strip of cloth. It burned like fire. He hissed between his teeth. You could have done this earlier, Kael said. I was busy. Dead people are not busy, Kael said. They are only dead. Rian shook his head. You talk like Sela sometimes. Sela is correct about many things, Kael said. including the value of not dying for avoidable reasons. Rian wrapped his hands in fresh cloth and tied the strips with his teeth. The makeshift bandages looked clumsy, but they held. Next, he asked. Airlock ring, Kael said. We must align it today. It will take several hours. Your fine motor control will be impaired. Rian looked back at his hands. You just told me to take a break. I told you to treat your wounds, Kael said. You have done that. Now we must work. He laughed once, a short, dry sound. You're worse than the old yard boss. I have no data on the yard boss, Kael said, but I assume he did not have access to orbital surveillance schedules. Rian's head came up. You said 9 days. That's still true? For now, Kael said. However, there is a developing anomaly. A minor glitch in a shipping schedule 2,000 kilometers east has caused a rescheduling ripple. One of Lord Verdan's relay drones will be out of position for approximately 3 days, starting in 6 days from now. During that window, the sky over this region will be less observed. How much less? Rian asked. Surveillance probability drops from 92% to 41%, Kael said. If you launch during that window, your chance of reaching orbit without interception increases significantly. Rian stared out at the empty sky. 6 days, 3 days of thinner nets. We can't finish in 6 days, he said. We must, Kael said, or you will not launch at all. After the anomaly resolves, Verdan's network will compensate. Frontier coverage will tighten. Rian rubbed his bandaged hands together. They throbbed in time with his heartbeat. You sure about this glitch? He asked. As sure as I can be, Kael said. I have monitored the relay traffic for weeks. This is the first disruption of this pattern. It will not last. Rian thought of the hole still open at the stern, the airlock ring lying on its side near the pit, lined with old sealant and rust, the life support unit half disassembled on his workbench, the jumble of cables and tanks and patch panels. 6 days. He swallowed. His throat felt dry. Then we don't sleep much, he said. You will sleep enough to remain functional, Kael said. Exhaustion leads to errors. Errors in this context lead to explosive decompression. Yeah, Rian said. I got that part. He walked over to the airlock ring. It was a heavy circle of metal, big enough for one person to crouch through. He had cut it from a wrecked shuttle 3 days ago. The edges were rough where his cutter had bitten too deep. He squatted and ran his fingers over the old seals. Cracked rubber, flaking adhesive. This thing was meant to mate with a docking collar, Kael said. We will adapt it to the hull. The alignment must be precise. If the ring is even 2 degrees off axis, the door will bind under pressure. Show me, Rian said. The tablet screen lit with a faint blue diagram. The ring, the hull curve, the internal pressure lines. Numbers scrolled at the bottom. Rian studied it, jaw tight. His head felt thick. He had never gone to any of the little schools in the town. He had learned by taking things apart. This looked like another thing he had to take apart, but in his head. Mark it, he said. A faint blue crosshair appeared on the inside of the ring, visible through the cracked goggles he pushed down over his eyes. Kael had tied into their old display lenses weeks ago. The crosshair floated, then settled. Center point, Kael said. We will scribe from there. Rotate the ring until the top mark aligns with the bow vector. Plain words, Rian said. Turn it so the notch faces the front, Kael said. Then we draw lines. That I can do, Rian said. He set his shoulder against the ring and pushed. It rolled with a grinding noise, leaving a shallow groove in the sand. His bandaged hand slipped, but he kept going. The sun climbed. Heat pressed down. Sweat ran into his eyes again. He blinked it away and kept his grip. Kael talked him through the alignment, numbers, and degrees. Rian translated them into marks on the metal with a piece of chalk and the edge of a broken ruler. His hands shook, but the lines came out straight enough. Every few minutes, Kael said, "Breathe," and Rian realized he had been holding his breath. When the marks were done, he dragged the ring to the pit and lowered it in with the crane. The rope fibers creaked. Sand fell in little avalanches from the ring's outer edge. They would bolt it into the bow, cut the opening, and tie it into the internal frame. It was the mouth of the ship, the only way in or out once the hull was sealed. Rian watched it swing over the skeleton. The blue overlay on his goggles showed where it should go. A ghost ring settling into a ghost hull. Looks like it wants to be there, he said. It wants nothing, Kael said. You want it there. That is enough. Rian's fingers throbbed. His shoulders ached. His eyes burned with grit and lack of sleep. The ship's bones rose from the pit, crude and mismatched, held together by his bolts and Kael's lines of light. 6 days, he thought. 3 days after that, when the sky would not be watching as hard. He took hold of the crank again. Tell me if I start doing something stupid, he said. I already do, Kael said. Louder, Rian said. and leaned his weight into the handle. The sun was a white plate overhead when Rian dragged the sled up to Sela's hauler. The sand around the caravan shimmered. Heat came off the hauler's hull in slow waves. The big vehicle sat on its retractable legs, panels open along one side where Sela's crew moved in and out with crates. The smell of hot metal and old oil hung in the air. Rian's shoulders burned. The rope of the sled had cut into his palms. He did not stop. The pile on the sled clinked and rattled with every jolt. "Someone's been busy," a voice called. He glanced up. One of Sela's younger runners, a girl with a shaved head and a nose ring, leaned on a crate and watched him. She eyed the parts on his sled. Her gaze caught on a polished actuator, a compact power regulator, a pair of unburned conduit bundles. "Boss is in the bay," she said. "If that's for sale." "It is," Rian said. His voice came out hoarse. He swallowed and kept going. Inside the hauler, the temperature dropped a little. The cargo bay was a long, shadowed space lined with racks. Old ship parts, sealed food packs, water drums, and bundles of cloth were tied down in neat rows. A battered fan pushed air around, humming over the clank of tools. Sela stood by a workbench near the far wall. She was bent over a disassembled pump, hands deep in its guts. Her cybernetic eye glowed faint amber in the dimness. A strip of cloth was tied around her head to keep sweat out of her good eye. "Brought you something," Rian said. He let the sled rope fall. The sled's runners scraped metal as it came to a stop. Sela looked up. Her gaze went first to his face, then to the sled. She wiped her hands on her robe and walked over, boots ringing on the deck. She crouched by the pile. Her fingers moved quick and sure, turning each piece, checking for cracks, pitting, stress lines. "Where'd you pull this?" she asked. "North Run," Rian said. "Past the broken tower, under that old troop carrier spine." She lifted the compact regulator. It still had half a manufacturer's seal on one side. She grunted. "Didn't know you had the gear to cut this free." "I don't," Rian said. "Used a wedge in time." She snorted. "And luck. This is clean." He watched her expression. She was interested. That was good. He needed her interested. Behind his eyes, Kael's voice was calm. "Her last 3 trades with you were in her favor?" Kael said. "You can push harder than usual." Rian's jaw tightened. He did not answer out loud. Sela set the regulator down and picked up a small guidance node. It had once been part of a shuttle's attitude system. She whistled low. "You know what this is?" she asked. "Guidance core," Rian said. "Still sealed. No scorch marks." "Still sealed," she repeated. "You open it?" "No." "Good." She straightened. "You don't open things like this unless you have a lab. Or a death wish." She looked at the whole pile again. The value of it sat there in her silence. Rian could almost see her adding numbers in her head. "Fuel. Water. Ammo. Bribes." "You planning to retire?" she asked. "Or just finally got tired of eating sand and rust?" "Need something bigger," Rian said. "Bigger than this?" She nudged the sled with her boot. "You're already punching above weight, kid." He took a slow breath. The air smelled of metal and dust and the faint sour of old sweat. "I want an ascent booster," he said. "And a sealed tank. Reaction mass. Enough for one climb." The bay seemed to go quieter. Even the fan's hum sounded thin. Sela did not answer right away. Her face did not change much, but something in it cooled. Her cyber eyes lens narrowed. "Say that again," she said. He held her gaze. "An ascent booster. Decommissioned is fine. And a sealed tank." She stared at him a long moment. Then she gave a short laugh with no humor in it. "You know those are controlled," she said. "You know that, right?" "Yes." "You can't even piss near one without 3 different registries lighting up." "I know." She folded her arms across her chest. Her robe shifted, showing the patch pressure suit underneath. "And you think you can pay for that with one sled of pretty scrap?" "It's not all," Rian said. "I have more. Good boards. A working med patch printer. I can bring them." "Even if you brought me a full shuttle's guts," she said. "That's not the point." She stepped closer. She smelled faintly of engine grease and desert wind. "Why do you want it?" she asked. Rian's throat went dry. He had known this was coming. He had tried to plan words, but now they felt thin. "Powerful silence," Kael said in his ear. "Let her speak first." Rian kept his mouth shut. Sela's jaw worked. "You running cargo for someone I don't know about?" she asked. "You planning to start your own caravan? You think you can just light a booster out in the dunes and no one will notice?" Her tone was not mocking. It was flat. She was measuring him. "I'm building something," Rian said. "What?" "A ship," he said. "Small. Enough for 1, maybe 2. Her good eye narrowed. For a heartbeat, he thought she might laugh again. She did not. A ship, she repeated. Yes. To go where? Up, he said. Off-world. The words sounded simple. They felt heavy in his chest. Sela looked at him like she was seeing him new. The bay's fan creaked as it turned. You're serious, she said. Yes. She exhaled through her nose. You know what happens to people who try to leave without papers? He knew. Stories ran through the camps, security drones tracking heat plumes, orbital guns picking off unauthorized burns, people dragged back in chains, people who did not come back at all. I know, he said. Then tell me why, she said. And don't say bigger trade routes or better scrap. You're a bad liar when you try to sound like a merchant. He rubbed his thumb over the rope burn in his palm. The skin there was raw. He could say nothing. He could make up a story, a rumor of a rich haul in orbit, a bet with another scavenger. But Sela had seen him since he was small. She had watched him pick through broken hulls for years. She knew how he moved when he lied. Truth increases probability of cooperation, Kael said. Recommend partial disclosure. Personal motive, not political. Rian swallowed. Someone was taken, he said. Off-world. Sela's face did not change much, but her shoulders eased a fraction. That kind of story she understood. Who? She asked. I don't know, he said. Her brow creased. You don't know who, but you want to go after them. Not their name, he said. But there was a ship, years back. Before I remember clear, someone took a child off this world. My family. They left one, took one. The words came out halting. He had never said it like this before. It sounded fragile in the air. Sela's gaze went to his left wrist. The faint geometric birthmark there showed where his sleeve had ridden up. You think there's another one of you, she said quietly. Yes, he said. And you think they're, what, sitting in some palace now, waiting for you to show up in a bucket you built in a pit? Her tone had an edge, but it was not cruel. It was the edge of someone trying to cut through fog. I don't know where they are, he said. But they were taken up, so I start by going up. He heard how simple it sounded. Child simple, but it was the only path he had. Sela looked away, past him, to the open bay door where the hard blue sky showed. You know how many kids get taken off-world from places like this? She asked. Indenture, conscription, scholarships for the bright ones. You think you can find one person in that mess? I have help, he said. Her eyes flicked back to his. From who? He hesitated. He could say nothing. He could say an old data core. A ghost in the wires. Careful, Kael said. Her risk assessment will spike if she thinks I tie to pre-collapse tech. Frame as guidance, not weapon. Old maps, Rian said aloud. Old data. From before the wrecks. I found something in a hull. It knows routes, names. It's helping. Sela studied him. An AI? The word sat between them like a live wire. In the core, AIs were registered, collared, leased to oligarchs. Out here, they were rumors and superstition, or things buried deep in dead machines. Rian did not nod. He did not shake his head. It talks, he said. Tells me how to make things work. That's how I knew what to bring you, what to ask for. Sela's jaw clenched. She turned away, walked a few paces, then turned back. So you've got a ghost in your head telling you to build a ship, she said. And you want me to hand you the kind of hardware that gets whole caravans audited, maybe shot. Yes, he said. He kept his voice steady. He would not beg. He would not sell this as something it was not. It was dangerous. It was stupid. It was also all he had. Sela was quiet a long moment. Outside, someone shouted and laughed. A crate thumped. The world went on. You know what an ascent booster does when it misfires? She asked finally. Explodes, he said. Explodes, she agreed. You know how many things have to go right to get you into orbit? Angle, timing, burn rate, cooling. It's not like lighting a camp stove. I have guidance, he said. It knows the math. Her mouth twitched. Math won't help if your welds crack. They won't, he said. He thought of the hours in the pit, the way his hands shook from holding plates in place while they cooled. I'm careful. You're a kid in a hole with a torch, she said. Careful only goes so far. He felt heat rise in his face. You trade with kids in holes every day. That's different, she said. I trade for scrap. If you die pulling it, the oligarchs don't care. If you light an unregistered booster, they care. They care a lot. They start asking where you got it, who sold it. They start making examples. Her cyber eye whirred softly as it focused on him. You understand that? If I help you and you get caught, they don't just bury you in the sand. They come for me, my crew, my routes. They shut me down or worse. I know, he said. Do you? She pressed. He thought of the patrol drones that sometimes cross the sky, of the stories of caravans seized for tax irregularities. of Sela's people who had fed him more than once when his haul was bad. He did not want that on them. But he also could not stay. I know it's risk, he said. Big risk. For you. For me. I'm not asking you to do it for free. She barked a short laugh. Good, because I don't do anything for free. She paced a few steps, then came back to the sled. She towed the guidance node. This pile, she said. Plus what else you say you have. It's still not equal to the heat I'll take if anything goes wrong. I can work, Rian said. Run with your crew. Take the worst jobs. Pay off the rest. Sela stared at him. You'd go into caravan debt? You know, that's just a slower way to die, right? If I don't try, I stay here, he said. Same holes, same wrecks, waiting for security to push the line closer, waiting for the next dust fever, or the next raid. He shook his head. At least this way, I move. Silence again. Sweat trickled down his back. His shirt stuck to his skin. Sela's shoulders dropped a little. Some of the iron went out of her voice. You're stubborn, she said. Always have been. He did not answer. She sighed. I do know a guy. Out past Relay 12. He strips old shuttles. Sometimes the boosters go off book before they get logged. Sometimes a tank gets lost on the way to reclamation. Rian's heart beat faster. Probability of success increases if we secure that hardware, Kael said, very calm. Do not appear too eager. It will weaken your bargaining position. Rian forced his voice to stay level. Could you get one? Maybe, Sela said. If I call in favors, I'd rather keep. And if I spread the parts across a few runs so it looks like nothing special. She looked at him hard. And if I do this, you don't get to change your mind. You don't get to decide the sky's too scary after all. You light that thing and you go. I won't change my mind, he said. You're a kid, she said again, but softer now. Kids change their minds. He thought of the half-built hole in his pit, the way it had started to look like a real thing, not just a dream. He thought of the birthmark on his wrist, and the idea of another hand somewhere that matched it. I won't, he said. Sela chewed the inside of her cheek. Finally, she nodded once, sharp. All right, she said. Terms, then. She tapped the sled with her boot. All this, plus whatever else you've been hoarding. I get first pick. In return, I see what I can do about a booster and a tank. Decommissioned. No guarantees on age or condition. You take what I get. Okay, Rian said. Not done, she said. You also work for me. 2 runs. Full runs. Out and back. No pay, just food and water. You carry, you guard, you fix whatever I tell you to fix. That's my fee for the risk. Rian hesitated. 2 runs could be weeks. Time the ship sat in the pit, half finished. Window in surveillance in 3 days, Kael said quietly. If she delays you past that, probability of undetected launch drops by 62%. I need to launch soon, Rian said. Within a few days. There's a gap, Kael says. The maps say the relays are busy with a convoy. Patrol's thin. If I miss it, I wait. Maybe months. Sela's eyes narrowed. You planning to light this thing while my hauler is still in range? No, he said. I'll go out. Far. She snorted. Far is relative when you're burning like a flare in a dark room. She thought for a moment, then shook her head. 1 run, then. We leave tonight, back in 2 days if the roads are clear. I make calls while we move. If I can line it up, I drop the hardware near your pit under cover of dark. You launch on your magic window. After that, if you're still alive and free, you owe me the second run. If you're dead, I get to keep my conscience clean. Rian let out a breath he had not known he was holding. Yes, he said. I can do that. Sela held out her hand. Her palm was rough, calloused. Deal, she said. And Rian. He took her hand. Her grip was firm, solid. If this ghost in your head starts telling you to do anything that sounds even dumber than this, she said, you come talk to me first. I've seen a lot of bad ideas. I can usually spot the worst ones. A corner of his mouth twitched. I will. She released his hand and jerked her chin at the sled. Leave this, she said. Go get whatever else you've got stashed. We roll at sundown. And don't tell anyone what you just told me. Not your camp, not the other scabbers. You keep your mouth shut and your head down. I know how, he said. She gave him a look that said she hoped that was true. As he stepped back out into the glare, Kael's voice came again. This improves our chances, Kael said. Not to certainty, but it is the best path available. Rian squinted up at the sky. The air wavered. Somewhere above, relays hummed and watched. Good enough, he muttered. He headed back toward the pit at a trot, sand kicking up under his boots, mind already racing through what he still had to weld before the sun went down. The cargo arm froze halfway through its swing, and let out a grinding squeal that set Morrow's teeth on edge. He was on the catwalk above Dock 6, one boot hooked in the mesh, one hand on the rail. Below him, the arm hung over an open ore container. The claw held a crate of processed ingots, a few hundred kilos of dense metal dangling over the heads of 3 loaders. They all looked up at once. "Jex!" the shift foreman shouted from the bay floor. "You seeing this?" Moreau was already moving. "Yeah. Lock the bay," he called down. "Nobody under it." The foreman swore, but he jabbed the panel by the big door. Yellow strips along the walls flicked from idle blue to warning amber. The outer door's status lights held steady green. At least the seals were good today. Morrow jogged along the catwalk, the metal grating rattling under his boots. The air smelled of machine oil, metal dust, and the faint, sour tang of too many bodies and not enough volume. Somewhere above, a fan bearing whined in a high, thin note. "Dock 6, minor equipment delay," the overhead speaker said in that smooth, neutral station voice. "Please remain clear of marked hazard areas. Remember, safety is everyone's responsibility." Morrow snorted under his breath. "Yeah, sure." He reached the service hatch on the arm's pivot column, kicked the latch with his heel, and swung it open. Warm air gusted out, carrying the burnt smell of stressed wiring. Inside, the manual override wheel sat locked in place, red indicator bar halfway between free and secure. He pressed his palm to the side of the housing. The metal vibrated in a slow, irregular pulse. Jammed gear, maybe. Or the cheap actuator they'd installed last month had finally given up. "Jex, I got a schedule here," the foreman called up. "We're already behind on the load. I got a dispatch ping from Central 2 minutes ago." "Tell Central to come fix their own cheap junk," Morrow said. "Or they can go outside and catch the crate when it drops." There were a few short laughs from below. The foreman didn't join in. Morrow didn't blame him. Joking only went so far when your badge was tagged to a debt account. He pulled his wrench from its loop on his belt. The handle was worn smooth where his hand gripped it. The metal was stained dark near the head. He liked that. It felt honest. He leaned into the hatch and set the wrench on the first bolt. Overhead, the speakers clicked again. "Attention all personnel," the station voice said. "A reminder from Lord Verdan Consolidated Safety and Wellness Division." Morrow rolled his eyes. Of course. Yesterday's minor pressure deviation in residential Ring B has been fully resolved. Investigation shows the cause was a failure to follow proper maintenance reporting procedures. Remember, if you see something, say something. Air is our shared resource. Negligence puts us all at risk. He felt his jaw tighten. "Minor pressure deviation," he muttered. "Sure." He knew 3 people in Ring B who had spent the night in emergency masks while techs hunted for the leak. One of them was a kid, 9, maybe 10. He'd seen the boy this morning, pale, with red marks on his face where the mask seals had rubbed raw. "The individual responsible has been reassigned to non-critical duties, pending retraining," the voice went on. "We thank the vigilant workers who reported the issue promptly. Together, we keep Verdan space secure." Morrow set his teeth and cranked the bolt. It resisted, then gave with a sharp jerk that sent a jolt up his arm. His hand slipped. Skin knuckles scraped metal. He hissed a breath in through his teeth and shook his hand once. "Everything's the workers' fault," he said, not quite loud enough for anyone to hear. He loosened the cover plate and pulled it free. Inside, the actuator sat half-twisted in its mount. The cheap composite casing was cracked. A piece of it had wedged itself between the gear teeth. "There you are," he said. He wedged his shoulder against the housing and reached in. The metal was hot under his fingers. He dug for the shard, got a grip, and yanked it out. The gear shuddered, then settled. Below, one of the loaders cupped his hands around his mouth. "You got it, Morrow?" "Maybe," Morrow called back. He didn't look down. "When I say you jog the arm back to neutral, slow. If it sticks, you stop." He worked the gear back and forth by hand, feeling for rough spots. It moved, but not smooth. The failure would come back. Just not today. They were lucky. Above, the speakers shifted tone. A different voice came on, male, warm, practiced. The kind of voice that sounded like it smiled. "This is Director Havel of Worker Relations," it said. "I want to personally thank all of you for your patience during yesterday's brief incident." Morrow closed his eyes for a second. "Of course they rolled out, Havel." "We are proud of the quick response from our community," Havel's voice said. "Your vigilance shows the true spirit of Verdan space. We're all in this together." Morrow opened his eyes and set his jaw. Together, he thought, from the top floor of some gravity-balanced office, where the air never tasted like metal dust. "We have identified a small number of agitators," Havel went on. "Individuals who spread false rumors and try to disrupt our shared stability. They tell you that equipment is failing, that management does not care, that there is no future here. These are lies." Morrow's fingers stilled on the gear. "They may approach you with unauthorized bulletins or off-channel messages," Havel said. If you see such material, report it to your supervisor. Remember, unverified information is as dangerous as a cracked seal. Morrow swallowed. The air in the housing felt hotter. He thought of the old maintenance closet on Deck G, the one that didn't show on the standard maps. He thought of the patched terminal inside, the one he'd wired into the back of an old supply node. He thought of the quiet thread of messages that ran through it, names and badge numbers removed. Just reports, a conveyor belt that slipped, a ration cut in Section 9, a security sweep that took 3 people and didn't bring them back. Lies, Havel said. Dangerous. Jex, the foreman called. You listening? I said we've got 5 more containers in queue. Yeah, I heard you, Morrow said. He moved his fingers again, forcing the gear through its range. You ready down there? Whenever you are. Morrow pulled his arm back, wiped his hand on his vest, and slammed the cover plate back into place. He tightened the bolts quick but solid. Okay, he called. Jog it back. Slow. The foreman gave a signal. The arm shuddered. For a second it didn't move. Then it lurched, then slid back toward neutral. The crate swayed. The loaders below stepped back, hands up, watching it like it might jump at them. Slower, Morrow shouted. You want that on your head? The movement steadied. The arm crept back until the indicator light on the rail went from red to yellow, then green. The crate settled over the container. The claw released with a heavy clank. A breath went out of the room. People laughed, nervous, a little too loud. Dock 6 operations normal, the station voice said. Thank you for your attention to safety. Morrow shut the hatch and kicked it once for good measure. His knuckles throbbed. He flexed his fingers, skin already swelling. Jex, the foreman called up. Nice save. I'll note it. Yeah, Morrow said. Put it in the file with my other medals. The foreman snorted. Just don't break it again before shift end. Morrow started along the catwalk toward the stairs. As he passed the big viewport at the end, he glanced out of habit. The moon hung below the station. It was a ball of dirty ice and rock, its surface scarred with mines and old impact craters. Beyond it, the gas giant filled half the view, a banded wall of pale blue and sickly green. Thin rings cut across it, dark against the light. Little specks moved along those rings. Tugs, haulers, drones. Cold, he thought. It all looked cold. He made his way down to the bay floor. The loaders were already moving the next container into place. You hear that? One of them said as he passed. Agitators now. Fancy word. Means someone told the truth too loud, another said. They both looked at him, like they expected him to say something. Morrow shrugged. Means watch your mouth, he said. That's all. He kept walking. His shift ended 2 hours later. He signed out at the dock console. The screen flashed his name, his badge number, his shift grade. A line in small text at the bottom read, Incident response satisfactory. No bonus. No surprise. He stepped into the corridor. The air was cooler here, the flow from the main exchange stronger. The walls were the same dull gray composite, patched and repatched. Posters lined them at intervals, smiling workers in clean uniforms. Slogans about unity and productivity. A new one showed a hand passing a data slate to a supervisor. Share concerns through proper channels, it said. Rumors harm everyone. Morrow didn't stop to look. He had the route home timed. 15 minutes from Dock 6 to Residential C if you didn't get stuck behind a bulkhead inspection or a wandering supervisor who wanted to talk about team spirit. He walked past the canteen. The smell of boiled protein and rehydrated starch hit him like a wall. A line curled out the door. A screen above the entrance scrolled the day's menu and a little note. Ration adjustments in effect. Thank you for your cooperation. 2 men near the back of the line were arguing in low voices. They cut the oil again, one said. You see that? They think we don't notice? Shut up, the other said. You want a monitor on your ass? Take it to the boards. Morrow kept his eyes forward and his pace steady. His stomach growled. He ignored it. He had a ration bar in his locker. He'd eat there. He turned down a side corridor that smelled faintly of mold. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The overhead panel here had a little crack in one corner where someone had thrown something years ago. They'd never bothered to replace it. Halfway down there was a door marked Storage Authorized Personnel Only. The lock panel beside it was dead. It had been dead for as long as Morrow had been on the station. He checked the corridor. Empty. A camera dome sat in the ceiling at the far end. Its lens pointed the other way, toward the main intersection. He'd watched its rotation pattern for weeks when he'd first started this. It never turned this far. He slipped inside. The room beyond was small and cluttered with old crates and coils of cable. Dust lay thick on most of it. The air was still. In the back corner, half hidden behind a stack of boxes, sat an old terminal. Its casing was scratched and yellowed. A cable as thick as his thumb ran from its rear into a hole he'd cut in the wall panel. He tapped it into a forgotten maintenance trunk there. The trunk, in turn, linked into the station's low-priority supply net. He closed the door behind him. The noise of the corridor cut off. His shoulders dropped a little. He sat on the crate in front of the terminal and tapped the power pad. The screen flickered, then came up with a faint blue glow. His custom login screen appeared. No name, just a prompt. He typed his handle, G-Shift. He'd picked it because it sounded like nothing. The board loaded, lines of text scrolled up. Each entry had a timestamp, a deck code, and a short tag. No sender names. He'd built it that way on purpose. The messages bounced around a few intermediate nodes before they got here. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than talking in the canteen. He scrolled back to where he'd left off last night. 912D9. Conveyor jam. No lockout. Near crush. Supervisor yelled at us for delay. 9:45 RB. Pressure alarm yesterday. Woke up with mask on. Kid in 18C puked in his... They say it was nothing. 10:03 M2 at ration cut again. Oil down. Protein same. Say it's calibration. 727S security sweep. 3 taken. Nobody told why. We're supposed to be calm. He read each line twice. His jaw clenched. He thought of Havel's voice. Minor incident. Agitators. Lies. He opened a new message field. His fingers hovered over the keys. He shouldn't. That was always the first thought. Every word here was another chance for someone to trace something, somewhere. He'd been careful. Old routes, dead nodes, nothing official. Still, the more you said, the more you left for someone to find. He thought of the kid with the mask marks, the loaders under the hanging crate, the men in line at the canteen. He started typing. 1302D6, cargo arm actuator failed mid-swing. Crate over 3 workers. No lockout until we yelled. Cheap part cracked. Patched it. No inspection scheduled. He paused, then added, safety announcement blames worker negligence for RB leak. Havel on the net talking about agitators and false rumors. They're watching for off-channel talk. Be careful. Keep notes. Nothing else changes if no one knows. He read it over. It sounded like him. He hated that. But he didn't see how to make it sound like anyone else. He hit send. The line dropped into the list, stamped with time and deck. He sat there for a moment, listening to the faint hum of the terminal. A new line popped up almost at once. 1304 RB. Saw that announcement. Minor deviation. My neighbor's lips went blue. Thanks for saying it. Another, a few seconds later. 1305U. Same words they used on my cousin's station before it blew a seal. Different system. Same script. Morrow frowned at that one. Oh, meant the sender hadn't set a deck code. Sometimes people did that on purpose. Sometimes it meant the route bounced in weird ways. Different system. Same script. He wondered where. Some other cold rock around some other gas giant, probably. Or some dusty world with open sky and broken ships. Didn't matter. The words were the same. He sat back on the crate and rubbed his face with both hands. His skin felt gritty. He could stop. He thought that sometimes. He could shut the board down, cut the cable, walk away. Go back to just fixing what broke and keeping his head down. Let the announcements talk and the posters smile and pretend that was all there was. But then he thought of the silence that would leave. The way each little lie would stand alone, unchallenged. Like it was the only truth. He looked at the screen again. More lines were coming in now. Short clipped reports. Someone on a refinery deck talking about filters overdue for replacement. Someone in medical noting a shortage of antibiotics. Someone in a comms alcove mentioning new security routes around the hub relays. He read them all. He didn't answer most. The board wasn't for talking. It was for seeing. He thought, not for the first time, that if anyone at Central ever really read this, they'd realize how much people noticed, how much they remembered, how much they cared. Then he thought, also not for the first time, that maybe Central knew. Maybe they just didn't care. He shut the terminal down. The screen went black. The room felt smaller without its glow. He stood up, listening for any sound outside. Nothing, just the faint vibration of the station structure. The constant low hum of pumps and fans and lives being kept going by machines that were always one cheap part away from failure. He opened the door a crack and looked out. The corridor was empty. The camera dome at the far end still pointed the other way. He slipped out, closed the door behind him, and walked toward Residential C. He kept his pace steady. His hands stayed loose at his sides. His face stayed blank. On the wall, another new poster had gone up. A simplified map of the station showed colored zones. Green for work, blue for rest, red for restricted. A small print line at the bottom read, Unauthorized access to data systems is a Class 3 violation. He didn't slow down to read it. He'd already seen enough. In his pocket, his fingers found the small wrench on his belt loop, the metal warm from his body. He curled his hand around it as he walked. It was something solid, something he knew how to use. Somewhere far out in the black, he knew, other stations turned, other worlds spun, other people listened to the same soft voices telling the same careful lies. Different system, same script. He kept walking. Rian heard the crawler before he saw the lights. The low grind of treads came up the wash, then the soft clatter as it rolled over loose scrap. He set down the hand torch and climbed out of the pit, boots slipping on the slope of packed sand. The sky was clear, stars sharp. The broken line of the old battle still cut across it, a faint band of darker shapes that blocked some of the starlight. The air smelled of metal dust and cold rock. Sela's crawler eased to a stop beside the rusted crane. Its engine coughed once, then settled. Someone killed the lights. For a moment there was only the outline of the machine, a darker block against the dunes. Then Sela slid down from the cab. Her boots hit the sand with a thud. She walked around to the flatbed and slapped the side twice. "You better be awake, boy," she said. Her voice was low, but it carried. "I'm here," Rian said. He moved closer. The flatbed was piled with something long under a stained tarp, tied down with frayed synth rope. The shape was right, narrow cylinder, tapering nose. Fins broken off or missing. His chest felt tight. Sela watched his face. Her cybernetic eye glowed faintly in the dark, picking up the crawler's dying heat. "You look like someone just handed you a son," she said. "Don't make me regret this." Rian swallowed. "You found one." "I found something," Sela said. "We'll see if it kills you or not." She climbed up on the flatbed and jerked at the knots. Rian jumped up to help. The tarp was stiff with old fuel stains. It rasped under his fingers. Together they pulled it back. The booster lay there, dull in the starlight. The casing was dented along one side. Burn scoring blackened the tail. The main nozzle was cracked at the lip. Someone had cut off the guidance fins with a torch and taken the mountings. A faded logo ran down one curve, half sanded away. "It flew once," Sela said. "Maybe twice? Then someone dropped it out in the west field and left it to rot. Took me 2 days to track it down. 3 favors, 1 bribe, and a promise I don't like." Rian ran his hand along the metal. It was cold and rough. He could feel the slight give around one of the dents. The casing had buckled there. "It's good," he said. "It's old," Sela said. "And it's heavy. You going to stare at it all night, or get it under cover?" Rian jumped down. "We should move the crawler closer to the pit. Less distance to drag." "You think I don't know that?" Sela said, but she got back in the cab and nudged the crawler forward until the flatbed's edge lined up with the start of the slope. They worked in the dark. No one used lights this far out at night unless they wanted attention. The stars gave enough to see shapes. Rian's hands knew the edges of his own pit by now. They rigged the old crane arm with a chain and hook. The motor whined, complaining, but it lifted. The booster rose off the flatbed, hanging crooked. Sand fell from the scoring and the old weld seams. "Careful," Sela said. "I am," Rian said through his teeth. His palms were slick on the chain. They swung the booster over the pit. The half-built ship's skeleton waited there, ribs of scavenged hull plating and patched beams. The airlock ring glinted faintly. The frame for the dorsal mount stuck up like a bare spine. "Lower," Rian said. The crane's motor chattered as Sela eased it down. The booster turned a little, bumped one of the ribs, and set the whole frame shivering. Rian's stomach lurched. He reached out and steadied the cylinder with both hands. Boots braced wide. "Got it," he said. "Then take it," Sela said. They eased it into the cradle he had welded along the keel. The fit was not perfect. It never would be. But the hard points matched close enough. When the weight settled, the frame creaked, then held. Rian let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Sela shut off the crane and climbed down. She stood at the edge of the pit, looking at the shape below. In the dark, it looked almost whole. The hull plates curved around it like a shell that had grown out of scrap. "You've been busy," she said. "Had to be," Rian said. Her gaze went to the patched airlock ring, the rough-cut ports, the jury-rigged life support vents. She shook her head once. "If this thing gets you to the upper sky, I'll eat my own boots," she said. "You know that?" "Then I'll save you some sand to wash them down," Rian said. A small snort of laughter escaped her. It sounded surprised. "You always this funny when you're about to die?" she asked. "Don't plan on dying," Rian said. He looked at the booster. "Not yet." Sela's expression shifted, some of the usual hardness softening around the mouth. "You really mean to go," she said. "Not just talk." "Yeah," Rian said. "Soon as it's ready." "How soon?" He hesitated. The night felt very quiet. Even the wind had dropped. Kael had been silent through the work, letting them focus. Now his voice came into Rian's ear, calm and close. Tell her, Kael said. We will need her timing. Rian's fingers tightened on the edge of the pit. 3 days, he said. Sela blinked. 3 days for this? She pointed at the half-finished hull. You're mad. 3 days is the window, Rian said. She frowned. What window? He glanced up at the sky, the old battle line, the faint moving dots of traffic, if you knew where to look. Kael's been listening, he said. To the net. To traffic. Sela's jaw worked. She looked around as if the AI might be standing there in the sand. I don't like talking to air, she said. I can project to your slate if you prefer, Kael said through the tiny speaker on Rian's wristcom. His voice was flat, unbothered, but that would be less discreet. Sela flinched, just a little. Then she snorted. Still creepy, she said. Noted, Kael said. Rian, may I explain? Rian nodded once. Go on, he said. The orbital surveillance pattern over this region is dense but structured, Kael said. It relies on a network of low and medium orbit platforms and on the sensor suites of passing traffic. Most of that traffic follows fixed lanes. Sela folded her arms. I know the lanes. Yes, Kael said, but you do not have access to their live schedules. I do, to a degree. Rian listened. The words came in Kael's usual precise rhythm. No hurry, no drama. 3 days from now, Kael went on, a scheduled waste barge will lift from the polar refinery at dawn. Its ascent path will pull 2 of the low orbit platforms into a tracking mode that ignores anything outside a narrow cone. At the same time, an ore freighter from the inner belt has been misrouted due to a clerical error. It will cross above this hemisphere 8 minutes later than planned, leaving a coverage gap in the overlapping sweeps. How do you know it's misrouted? Sela asked. Her tone was sharp now. The message logs are clear, Kael said. The freighter's updated flight plan was acknowledged by relay, but the surveillance scheduler has not yet adjusted. Someone on their side will notice, but not for at least another day. By then, the system will not have time to fully compensate. Rian tried to picture it. The planet, the rings of metal around it, the paths of ships like lines in the air, a hole opening between them, small and brief. How long is the gap? He asked. 17 minutes of significantly reduced probability of detection over this latitude, Kael said. The effective usable portion for you will be less, 11 to 13 minutes. That's not a gap, Sela said. That's a breath. It is enough, Kael said. If you launch on time, with a hard ascent burn, you can reach a low, dirty orbit before the scheduler rebalances. Once you are in the clutter band, your signature will be harder to isolate. Rian looked at the booster again, at the cracked nozzle, at the dented casing. Hard ascent burn, he repeated. You will need full thrust, Kael said. The booster is old. It will not be efficient, but the airframe can handle the stress if your welds hold. If, Sela said. She walked down into the pit, boots crunching on scattered bolts. She slapped one of the hull ribs, then the cradle holding the booster. You trust this? She asked Rian. He ran his hand along his last weld. It felt solid under his fingers. The metal was warm from the day's heat, now cooling. I trust it enough, he said. Enough for what? She said. Enough to die quick instead of slow in some indenture pit? He met her gaze. Her real eye was dark. The cybernetic one whirred softly as it focused. Enough to leave, he said. I can't wait for perfect. There's no perfect here. Silence stretched. The wind picked up again, faint, moving the edge of the tarp still on the flatbed. The fabric whispered. You wait, Kael said quietly, and the scheduler patch goes in. The gap closes. Security will also increase general sweeps. Lord Verdan's network is already tightening frontier routes. There may not be another opportunity of this quality for many cycles. Rian stared at the sand between his boots. Lord Verdan. He knew the name only as a curse others used when prices went up or rations went down. But the way Kael said it made it feel like a real person, someone pulling strings far above. I don't like being rushed, Sela said. Neither do I, Kael said, but the universe does not consult us. Rian huffed a short breath that might have been a laugh. What about tests? He asked. We haven't run the life support underload, the seals, the guidance. We can test components, Kael said. We cannot test a full ascent, not without exposing you to the same risks as the real launch, but without the benefit of the window. So we choose our risk, Sela said. Yes, Kael said. Rian felt the old, familiar knot inside, the one that came when he thought about walking into town with too much scrap on his sled, when he chose which wreck to strip, which patrol route to cross. Risk was the air here. You breathed it, or you suffocated. 3 days, he said again. That is when the barge lifts, Kael said. Local dawn at the Polar refinery. The gap over us will open 9 minutes after that. You must be rising before then. Sela looked up at the sliver of moon near the horizon. You'll need my charts, she said. Ground to sky. There are blind spots, even without your net games. Yes, Kael said. Your practical experience will refine my calculations. She scowled at the air. Don't make it sound pretty. It is not pretty, Kael said. It is necessary. Rian watched them argue, one in flesh, one in his ear. It felt strange and right at the same time, like two parts of a machine finally meshing. You'll help? He asked Sela. She turned to him. In the dim light, the lines on her face looked deeper. I already helped, she said, jerking her chin at the booster. This thing cost me. People will ask where it went. If you blow up on the way up, it better be high enough they can't see from here. I don't want them following the smoke back. I'll try, Rian said. Her mouth twitched. I'll bring the charts tomorrow night, she said, and some old ascent logs. You and your ghost can chew on them. Appreciate it, Kael said. She made a face. Stop being polite. It's unsettling. Rian climbed out of the pit with her. They walked back to the crawler. The engine clicked as it cooled. You should get some sleep, Sela said. You've got 3 days to turn that heap into something that won't tear you apart. I've gone longer, Rian said. Not like this, she said. She put a hand on his shoulder, heavy and brief. Don't be stupid. Stupid boys die fast. Smart ones die slower. Try to be the third kind. The ones who don't die. He nodded, working on it. She climbed into the crawler, started the engine, and rolled away without lights. The sound faded into the dark. Rian stood there a while, listening to the empty night. Then he went back down into the pit. He ran his hand along the booster again. The metal felt different now. Not just scrap, a promise, or a threat. Maybe both. Can we really do it? He asked. Yes, Kael said. No hesitation. We can. There is risk, but it is manageable. You sure? Rian asked. I am as sure as the data allows, Kael said. I have seen worse launches succeed, with less preparation and less intelligence in the cockpit. Rian snorted, calling me smart now. I am calling you trainable, Kael said. That is better. Rian sat on the edge of the cradle and let his legs dangle. The hull around him felt like a half-finished shell. Above, the stars waited. You said security's tightening, he said. Why? Patterns in the traffic, Kael said. New directives. Increased checks on independent haulers. More propaganda packets in the open channels. It aligns with a general shift in policy. Lord Verdan's network is reducing tolerated leakage. Leakage, Rian repeated. Like me? Yes, Kael said. Like you. Like anyone who moves without permission. Rian thought of the town, of the others in the scavenger camps, of Sela's caravan, all of them moving in the thin spaces between rules. They'll close it all, he said. If unopposed, yes, Kael said. Rian lay back on the cool hull plate, staring up through the open frame. The birthmark on his wrist itched. He rubbed it without thinking. You said my people used to fly free, he said, before all this. Yes, Kael said. They did. How did they start? Rian asked. The first time, when they didn't know if it would work. They built what they could, Kael said. They took the windows they had. They trusted each other, and they accepted that fear does not mean stop. It means pay attention. Rian listened to the words. They settled into him like grit in a wound, sharp but real. I'm scared, he said. Good, Kael said. So am I. Rian turned his head, even though there was no one to see. You, he said. Your code. I'm also invested, Kael said. In you. In this. Failure has consequences for me as well. I do not enjoy uncertainty. Rian let out a slow breath. 3 days, he said again. Yes, Kael said. Sleep now. Tomorrow we test seals. We reinforce the booster mount. We calibrate your improvised guidance. We will use every hour. Rian stared at the stars until his eyes blurred. Then he climbed out of the pit and walked to his small shelter, a lean-to of plates and canvas against the rock wall. Inside he lay down on his mat. The wind pressed at the canvas, then eased. Sand hissed faintly outside. Wake me if something changes, he murmured. I will, Kael said. Rian closed his eyes. He saw the booster rising, fire and smoke. He saw the gap in his net as a thin, bright line. He did not know which image scared him more. Sleep came slow, but it came.